Good evening, members, and welcome to the Scrutiny Committee for Leader, Finance and Performance, which is going out via remote video link on Tuesday, the 22nd of March, 2022 at 8 p.m. Item 1, roll call and virtual meetings explanation. Pleased to say we're joined by members of the Democratic Services, Legal Services and the Management Team, and by Scott Marshall from Scott Marshall Associates and Consultant. Thank you very much. I'll conduct a roll call. Councillor Bennett, please.
Present.
Sorry, Alison Bennett, yeah, thank you. Councillor Heidi Brunson. Don't believe I've seen her in the room, so, okay. Councillor Philip Cooch.
Present.
Councillor Rachel Cromie. Did she get in? I can see you. Rachel, Councillor Rachel Cromie.
Present. Sorry, my mute was stuck there.
So, Councillor John DeBell. Can't see him. I saw him earlier.
I did say present, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, I didn't hear. I beg your pardon.
That's quite all right. It's quite all right. Ich did and all that.
Councillor Anne Eves. You're on mute.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson.
I am here, but my camera's just died, so I'm going to leave and come back.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Janice Henwood.
Present.
Councillor Hicks.
Present.
Councillor Jackson.
Present.
Councillor Knight, I'm here. Councillor Lee, Andrew Lee.
Present.
Councillor Mike Pulford, Vice Chairman.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Stockwell, apologies. Councillor Trumbull.
Present.
Thank you. And Councillor Whittaker.
Present.
Thank you very much. We're also joined by Cabinet members, Councillor John Belson, Cabinet Member for Leisure and Community Services, Councillor Demir. Tom, we probably don't need to do this now. We all know now, but
I'll just do it, Chairman. We're meeting virtually. This is not a decision-making meeting, therefore we're in order to meet virtually. And as members will have seen, COVID rates are rather high at the moment.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you. Item 2, to note substitutes in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 4. I have Councillor DeBell, who is substituting for Councillor Stockwell. Item 3, to receive apologies for absence of Councillor Stockwell. To receive declarations of interest from members in any respect of the matter on the agenda. If you please let me know if anybody's got anything. I see no indications. Thank you. Item 5. To confirm the minutes held on the 12th of January 2022. If you wouldn't mind pressing the yes or no buttons, please. If you agree with them. Okay, those minutes are passed. Thank you very much. Item 6, to consider any items the Chairman agrees to take as urgent business. I have none. Moving on to item 7, Sustainable Economic Strategy and Action Plan 2022-2025, a substantive item for this evening. Just bear with me. Okay, Sustainable Economic Strategy. Following a substantial amount of cross-party work through a working group ably chaired by Councillor Pulford, the strategy brings together our economic development and sustainability and climate change work for the first time, recognising their intrinsic link. The strategy sets out how the Council will support the government's policy of net zero by 2050. It gives us a clear stance on these issues based on economic growth, job creation, conservation of our environment and practical actions to achieve net zero. Officers, the cross-party working group and recent workshop to all councillors have in general indicated they are comfortable with the strategy. I shall be structuring the debate around the following. So we'll be covering the overarching strategy, then the vision, then the priority themes and objectives, then the action plan, and then followed by district profile and equality impact assessment. So if Judy, if you would mind leading us in on the overarching strategy, just a brief explanation about that, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yes, of course. I think the report and the strategy itself is quite self-explanatory, so I don't want to go into too much detail, but I think it's worth touching on the point you've just made, Chairman, which is that this work was commissioned by the Scrutiny Committee, and this Scrutiny Committee set up a working group to oversee the development of this work. That group has met 8 times and has been supported by external consultants, Ricardo's, and actually Scott Marshall Associates, and you'll see that Scott is actually joining us on the call today. The working group also had the opportunity to comment on 2 drafts of this document, both the strategy and the action plan. And I think that it's, as I say, relatively easy to navigate. The strategy itself is outlined in paragraphs 17 to 20, consists of all the hallmarks of a good strategy. It has a vision. There are 3 themes. These are based on the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. There's 14 objectives and 44 actions. I think what is unusual about this strategy is that it's actually a 3-year strategy, and for local government, that's a relatively short strategy. And we've done that deliberately because we recognise that this is a fast-moving work stream. The environment that we're operating in is also a very challenging environment post-COVID and the Ukraine crisis. So we recognise the need for us to be agile. We've committed to a review of relevance on a regular basis, and we will continue to keep the document itself under constant review. And in actual fact, there are already some changes we need to make to the strategy before we actually publish. For example, West Sussex have changed the name of their economic plan from Economic Reset to Economic Plan. Some of the data in the supporting profile document, which can be found at Appendix 2, already need updating because data obviously constantly changes. And those of you who are really eagle-eyed may have picked up on 1 or 2 stray typos that we'll need to amend as well. We're here as an officer team to help you answer any questions or provide any clarification. So over to you, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Councillor Pulford, would you, as chairman of the working group, would you like to make a few opening comments, please?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I would. And it's very much to support what Judy has just very kindly said. I had the privilege of chairing these meetings, and I personally found them it was a very interesting journey. Yes, we did have 8 cross-party meetings, and we also had a workshop which was for all councillors to turn up. And again, there was valuable input at that meeting too. And I think that we concluded that all of the questions which has been raised throughout the journey had all been answered. And just really to comment on Judy's note was that it is fast moving and it will need to be reviewed as the months, not alone the years, go by. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pulford. I don't really want to go into too much debate on the overall strategy. I mean, I think there's been, as I say, Councillor Pulford said there's been 8 iterations and there was the workshop, but unless anybody's got any glaring omissions, I'd like to move on. I don't see any. Thank you very much. Just bear with me. So okay, the next thing we're going to discuss is the vision, which is on page 23, and I'll remind members that The vision is a vibrant district that is attractive, resilient and innovative, that balances social well-being, environmental protection and sustainable economic growth. Coupled with this is the council's main stated purpose is to be effective council delivering value for money services, helping to create a strong economy, environment and community. Judy, did you want to make any comments, please?
No, I think other than to say that this was discussed at length by the working group, and I think it is fair to say that there was much discussion over the use of some words in the document, and I can see that some members of the committee have raised their hand, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Not sure who's first, but Councillor Eaves, please.
I think Councillor Henwood was first. Sorry, Chair.
I don't think it matters. Off you go.
Okay, no problem. Yes, I'm still really not happy with the vision because it doesn't mention carbon reduction, climate change, anything like that. So as far as I'm concerned, it's too heavy on growth and not enough about carbon reduction. Environmental protection could mean just moving newts around or protecting tree roots. So it's not really enough for me. Thank you.
Would you like to comment on that, Judy, please?
Well, I think we've discussed this at length, and I think that the working group felt that the balance of the wording within the vision itself was appropriate and wanted to recommend this vision to the Scrutiny Committee.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Janice Henwood. Sorry, I didn't get you first.
No problem. It's not a competition. Yeah, there was a lots of discussion about economic growth, but anyway, I think the majority ruled in that instance. But I have persistent questions, persistent requests, and never a satisfactory answer on the page where it talks about district profile summary. Right. One question. 7.85. Is that out of 10? So we're pretty high on satisfaction.
What page is this?
It's on page 12, Appendix 1, page 12, Appendix 1, or page 22 in the report. It's diagrams, it's pictures.
Mhm.
Appendix 1.
Okay, yeah, got it.
You got it? Okay. All those nice, very easy pictures, which are really very good educationally to educate the public. But my first question, the 7.85 average life, is that out of 10? That's life satisfaction. A second question, which I repeatedly asked, was, I think it's an important statistic, in mid-Sussex, 60% of the population are overweight or obese. I think that's an important statistic because it impacts on so many other facets. In addition, and another important statistic was that domestic carbon emissions have the lowest rate of reduction in West Sussex, domestic. And this obviously is important because we're talking about carbon emissions, we're talking about ways of insulating houses. So I've never had a real satisfactory answer, and I was on the working party, and I did appreciate opportunities to put questions. So I have three questions there, Chairman, if they could be addressed. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for that. But we're discussing the vision here, and I'm not sure whether the statistics here will change that vision. But I'm interested in Judy's comments on that, please.
Okay. Yeah, we did discuss this in the working group, and these informatics were the informatics that we pulled out as being interesting, of importance. But as you know, all of the stats that you've referred to are actually included in the profile at Appendix 2, and you can pull any one of those out and put it in that in page 22 of the committee pack if you wanted to. I think these were just ones that were pulled out as an example. So I mean, I think from an officer's perspective, it doesn't really matter which of the key informatics you pull into the report. And certainly if the committee are minded, we could add the ones that have been referred to today. With respect to the specific question over the life satisfaction, I think we did respond to that at the meeting, but I can't actually remember. I would also say that any comments were also invited in writing, and we did respond in writing to all the comments made and shared that with all the members of the working group. So we could go back over and look for that information. But if it's okay, Chairman, I'll just ask if any of my colleagues are able to provide the information on whether that is out of 10. I honestly can't remember what the response was.
Please do.
Would any of my colleagues like to?
Judy and Chair, if it would help. And
thank you, Scott.
Sorry, and apologies, I'm slightly a bit hoarse, so I hope you can hear me. My understanding from my colleague Bruce Nan, who developed the data profile on your behalf, is that would be a score out of 10. So it would be a satisfaction of 7.5 out of 10. So I will though double check that and can provide a supporting statement back to the group.
Okay, Councillor Coote, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It seems to have escaped some of us that we are avoiding a world war by a gnat's breadth, and the economics of the whole of the world are upside down. I think this document is an excellent document, bearing in mind the situation in which we find ourselves. And so therefore, I don't feel that we should be criticizing it. It shows a vision, and I only hope and I pray to God that we can carry it out, because the situation is extremely serious. Thank you.
Does anybody else disagree with the vision? Or any other comments, please? Okay. It seems like there's general agreement with that. Thank you. Okay. Right, moving on, priority themes and objectives, people on page 24, place on page 27, and partnership on page 30. Judy, would you like to lead in, please?
Yes, as you've said, the way we structured the strategy was on the basis of, well, drawing on the 17 UN goals. But we organised them around themes of people, place and partnerships, and we secured objectives that would help deliver on those themes, and they're outlined in the strategy for people at page 24 to 25, place page 27 to 29, and partnerships on page 30.
Right, okay. Councillor Alison Bennett, please. You're on mute, Councillor Bennett. That's it.
I'm sorry, my Word document flashed up over my Zoom window and then I couldn't see you and I couldn't unmute. And now the Word document's disappeared again. Where's it gone?
Take your time, take your time. Please.
There we go. Right. Okay. Thank you. Is it okay to comment on objective 8 on page 27, please? Are we in that section, in the place section?
Yeah, we're taking those three on block. So
right, okay.
Yes.
So objective 8 relates to promoting biodiversity and nature recovery. I have to start by saying a big thank you to our colleagues, Councillor John Belsey and Councillor Ben Dempsey, neither of whom are members of this committee, but they've been doing a lot of spade work behind the scenes on what I'm about to propose. So the objectives or the actions that we're going to take on promoting biodiversity are really positive and really go a long way towards ensuring that this council has a nature recovery plan in place. But we'd like to propose an amendment, please, to ensure that the council has a simple nature recovery plan. And what that will do will meet the strengthening duty this council will have on biodiversity as a result of the new Environment Act, including the implementation of biodiversity net gain. It will inform the district plan, and it will also contribute to the county council's development of a local nature recovery strategy in due course, following secondary legislation and publication of the guidelines linked to the Environment Act. And we also think that by having a nature recovery plan, it will really help the council communicate with communities about what work we're doing to promote nature recovery and promote biodiversity when we're doing things like the Blue Heart campaign in our parklands. So I have some words for the amendment I'd like to propose. The words are to commit to the development of the Mid-Sussex Nature Recovery Plan to deliver Objective 8 of the Sustainable Economy Strategy. And the plan will, 1, set out how Mid-Sussex District Council will allocate resources to meet the strengthened biodiversity duty contained in the Environment Act 2021. And 2, begin by contracting a consultant to deliver a short-term, desk-based natural capital mapping of Mid-Sussex that will form the basis for a Mid-Sussex nature recovery network. And this will be budgeted from the Sustainability and Climate Change Special Reserve, and it'll be conducted with the use of West Sussex County Council's project mapping tool to ensure coherence. And that is the end of that amendment. But yes, thank you.
I believe Councillor Pulford, you're going to second this.
Mr. Chairman, yes, Councillor Bennett, thank you for bringing that forward, and I'd be very pleased to second that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pulford.
Thank you. Councillor Eaves or Councillor Trumbull, Councillor Batty, are you going to comment on these biodiversity assertions? Should we put it like that? Amendments.
No, not me.
Yeah, and I had my hand up, but I'm not going to comment on that. No.
Okay, well, come back. So what we'll do is we'll take a little vote on that. If people agree with that amendment, I don't know if officers want to comment before. Judy, do you want to comment before? Sally, before we vote?
Yeah, I'm very happy to. I think from an officer's perspective, I think it's already been said actually, this was work that the council would need to do and was intending to do. So I can reassure the committee that under Objective 8, this work would be, as we've already indicated, part of the district plan. So we're very happy to accept any amendments around that. I mean, not that it's obviously up to us, but I think that we would see it wouldn't be a challenge to us to accept this. I think that just generally speaking, I think it's worth reminding members that all of these objectives in the action plan are supported by more detailed actions, but even then behind those, there will be huge amounts of work, and each and every one of the actions will have as much detail as is suggested here to support its delivery, just to make that clear. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much.
Chairman, could I maybe ask?
Sorry, I was just going to come to you. I've forgotten you to speak on that. Please do, Councillor Balsey.
No, thank you, Chairman. No, really just to echo Councillor Bennett's points and Judy Holmes. I don't think any of us would disagree with what Councillor Alison Bennett suggested, and indeed, if it adds to sort of the confidence and comprehension for people on the doorsteps to understand what types of things we're actually doing to strengthen our biodiversity and to ensure we've got good mapping and can track that to maximise the benefits going forward, then if I was on the committee, I'd be very happy to support that amendment. As Judy Holmes says, it's things that these are the types of actions that we will be looking to do as a council, and if that helps aid people's understanding as the types of things to give them assurance in their homes, then very happy to support that. Would be very happy to support it, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Balsey. Okay, well, so we'll go to the vote on this. All those in favour of that amendment?
Chairman.
Sorry, sorry. Good evening, Councillor Hardy Brunson. Good evening.
Hi. I unfortunately couldn't get into the meeting early enough to hear what happened as part of the debate on this item, which we're about to go to a vote for. So therefore, I don't think it's appropriate that I there take a vote.
No,
I'd be helpful for the monitoring officer's comment if that's necessary.
I think that's okay. So all those in favour? Okay, there's 14 in favour. That has been passed. Thank you very much. Okay, back to the speakers. I can't remember who was first, but do you want to put your hands back up? Can officers, have we lost that? Have we lost the? Okay. Councillor Trumbull, I believe you wanted to speak. Yes, thank you. You're on mute, Colin. Councillor Trumbull.
Yeah, I've almost forgotten what about now.
Couldn't have been that important.
Well, no, absolutely not. Never is. I think it was something about reimagining, which I think is a great word, actually, reimagining what our retail centres look like. And I think we should. We had this debate in the last working group that what our retail centres, both the 3 towns and the villages, look like in 2019 ain't going to be what they look like going forward. So we do need to reimagine that. And I do seem to remember the debate around that at the working group, where we said that perhaps it isn't so appropriate, therefore, to talk about footfall. And now I've lost it. That footfall was mentioned here. Yes, objective 7, generating footfall. I know it comes in later on. So I just want to say, is that appropriate? If it is, then I'm happy to keep that. But we did debate footfall. Is it appropriate to keep it in? Thank you, Chairman.
Judy, would you like to comment?
Yes, I recall the debate at the working group meeting, and I think that following that debate, we did take on board the comments and reflections of the working group, and we have actually amended the measure of success. And I'm just checking that that is reflected in the footnote 15, I believe. Sally, I don't know if it's okay, Chairman, if Sally wanted to add anything to that.
Happy to. That's okay, Chair. Can you hear me?
We can.
So yes, I think that's, we did have a debate and we did change the measure of success. And I think if you go to page 38 of the committee papers, you can see that we've changed the measure of success from footfall to dwell time. Because we felt, or because the working group felt that dwell time was a more appropriate measure of success for town centres going forwards. However, footfall stays within the objective because improving footfall is fundamentally improvement to town centres. But we would be happy to change that if members felt that the objective needed changing as well. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Anne Eves, please.
Thank you, Chair. First question is about timing. I feel that we've been treading water, not getting anywhere really in the last 4 years. There was a sustainability strategy drawn up first in 2018, which came to nothing. And there was some kind of advisory panel, didn't come to anything. So my question really is, when will the Ricardo study be ready? And above all, when will we get the key performance indicators? Because for all of this data, all of this stuff that we're trying to achieve, we need the data. We need data on how many people cycle. We need data on the ridership of the buses and on CO2 reduction in Oaklands, for example, through the panels. So that's one question. And another question, which, that relates to objective 13. Objective 7, I feel we're being very unambitious on active travel. And it says in the table on page 38 that we're trying to increase the proportion of adults who cycle or walk at least 5 times a week, from 36 to 37%, which is actually a shockingly low figure. And I just feel that we should be much more ambitious on that. Can we not increase that figure to, say, 50%? And furthermore, Judy was talking about a review of relevance, and Councillor Coote was talking about we're in a war. This is so true. And I talked to someone the other day who said he used to get 5 requests a month for solar panel installations. He's now getting 25 requests a day. So my question here would be, are we working with the Central Sussex College to make sure that people can get trained up in solar panel installation, for example? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Neves. Judy, would you like to take up those 3 points? The Ricardo, when will that be ready? Was the first one, number 13.
Yeah, so on the Ricardos, I think, you know, this is well rehearsed, and it's a really important question, because clearly that work will be used as an important evidence base. So I'm going to ask Emma, if that's okay, Chairman, she can confirm the timeline for that.
Yes, thank you. So as was discussed at, I believe, the last working group, that work is on track to be fully delivered by the end of April. And we would then bring that report to the scrutiny group in the new municipal year. So it is intended, as soon as we have that will be published, and that will come through this scrutiny in the usual manner. But yes, it is important that we have that before we set and establish our KPIs, because the baseline is very important there. With regard to the baseline and the KPIs that come from that, some of the items mentioned are already reported as part of our normal KPI. We do report on the energy panels on the Oaklands campus, and have done for quite some time. So that information is already provided on a quarterly basis, and will continue to be so. There is a corporate process, a long-standing process for agreeing the council's key performance indicators, not just for this area of work, but across all of the council's work streams. And again, that will come forward as a report in the usual fashion through this committee, as happens on an annual basis. As part of the normal performance monitoring. Obviously, the Ricardo report will inform that and move forward. With regards to the active travel question, again, this was subject of quite a bit of discussion at the last working group, as I recall. And whilst it is difficult when dealing in percentages to get a grasp of exactly what level of shift that is, the target as given is equivalent to an additional 3,200 people choosing to cycle in a 3-year period. Bearing in mind that we are a district council and not a highway authority, that represents quite an ambitious target for us as a district council. And we are comfortable that that's a realistic target. With regards to the skills levels, we are working with a number of colleges and providers across the wider Sussex area on a range of skill sets that obviously do include a lot of the new green technologies that are coming out. For example, we are working with local providers where we can to deliver things within the district. A good example of this is the new EV installations, where it's actually a company that is employing some local people, and with the solar panel grants that are being offered as part of energy efficiency, it's actually being delivered locally by a Burgess Hill company. So wherever there are opportunities to do that, We are looking to employ local apprentices. We are looking for our supply chain to cover and employ local apprentices and local companies. So we are doing what we can, but obviously there's always more that could be done. And this strategy gives us a really good framework and some really good partnerships, we feel, at an officer level to take that forward and grow it in the coming years.
Thank you, Emma. Councillor de Bell, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I did agree to the amendment of Councillor Mrs. Bennett because it seemed to have been discussed. But I am very nervous about too many amendments coming in, possibly at this stage. This is just getting off the ground. I was delighted to hear about what's been going on and the partners involved in this, and there are a number of areas that we need to go forward with together at the same time. This plan is going to evolve. Things will change. Areas of energy and things like that, as I think Councillor Cook was implying, things will change. We need to be prepared for that. And if we put too many of our pet likes and dislikes into one area, there is a chance that the plates that we're trying to keep in the air, we will dislodge them and we'll bring the whole thing down. So I'm delighted with the way that we've come together with various partners to move forward. There are a number of different areas that need to go forward together. And part of it is, as Councillor Gould was alluding to, that we need to make sure that we're not going to bankrupt the whole mid-Sussex as we go forward. We've got to do this in an economic way and not put emphasis on any single pet area that we might have to make sure that this plan succeeds. And I'm delighted with what's been put forward. I know that there's an awful lot of officer time involved in this, and also the partners that they have. It will evolve. Let's work together to let it evolve. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor de Bell. Councillor Gibson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, I'm trying to work off a smartphone at the moment. I'd like to repeat just a couple of points which I brought up at the councillor briefing, which I think was last week. Objective 14, we have only one objective which relates to partners, and yet the entire programme is delivered through a wide range of partners. And I would just like some assurance that the one overall measure of success is going to evolve as the work proceeds, because I think we're going to find that there's very different relationships with working with the different sectors, either downwards towards parishes, towns, upwards towards county, out into the voluntary sector, and also with commercial suppliers as well. And within that, certainly bus companies should be regarded as a partner. And I still feel that yes, it's important to focus on active travel, but we should make sure that the rural communities have a good network available to travel within them. So we are cutting, private car usage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Judy, would you like to comment on that, please?
Yes, I mean, I think you're right. We are not an island, and in fact, we are a relatively small player in some of the initiatives. We're not the Highways Authority, that's the County Council, and many of the initiatives around particularly transport travel, we are reliant on our County Council partners. And you're also right that some of the partnerships that we will need to deliver some of these objectives and actions will be very much grassroots level partnerships. They'll be very local, small partnerships, and they may not even exist at the moment. And so I think I can reassure the committee that this will evolve, as indeed the rest of the plan will.
Thank you. Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I'd like to compliment the working party and the officers. I think it was a very constructive working party, and I'm pleased the way it went and the outcome. And particularly as it's a 3-year plan, because as people have remarked, the climate is so dynamic, and this is just the starting point. in terms of, many of us want to go further and quicker in a multitude of directions, no doubt. But I would just highlight, relating to Objective 7 and the health of our town centres, and thinking about the stats that have been highlighted in the appendix in terms of the retail vacancy rates varying between 7% in East Grinstead and 14% in Burgess Hill. And we did amend the target to dwell time, but I'd also highlight the differences there revealed in the stats, showing a 11% reduction in Burgess Hill in the last couple of years, 5% in East Grinstead and 0 in Haywards Heath. So I think the 2%, we should perhaps just clarify that needs to be a target for each of the towns, remembering that they are starting at different levels. And in Burgess Hill, we are particularly blighted by the delays in any of the redevelopment proposed by New River Retail, and that is a significant issue that needs to be addressed for Burgess Hill alone. But clearly there's wider issues around the retail environment for across all our towns.
Okay. Judy, who'd like to comment on the retail figures, please? Obviously can't comment on the New River thing, that's not for this meeting.
No, all I would say is, yes, I can reassure Councillor Hicks and the committee that the 2% relates to all of the towns.
Councillor Coote, please.
I'd just like to correct the statement that Councillor Eves said. I did not say that we are in a war. What I said was that we were in a gnat's breath from a war. And it still surprises me, the comments that are going on here today. If we can bring this draft document into fruition, we will be very lucky. I don't think it's struck anybody, certainly quite a few of the members of this committee, how bad the finances of this world are. I suggest that somebody, that most of you, watch the television and realise that the economics of Russia are going up the wall. China's about to help them. And here we are talking about how many people we should have on bicycles. For heaven's sake, let us pass this document, which is hard won, and get on with it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Coote. Councillor Jackson, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We have been talking quite a lot about encouraging the move to electric vehicles for domestic residents, but because of the high cost of diesel, the economics of running a diesel van or a van for traders and retailings is very important. If they want to reduce their costs, perhaps with more encouragement for them to move to sort of electric vehicles. And this could well be making sure there are the charging facilities for retail premises and tradesmen, so they'll be able to do that as well. So that should be something which is, is a moving field, but it's obviously probably far more important if the cost of diesel remains very high.
Thank you for your comments. Councillor Henwood.
Thank you. I do appreciate what has been said about perhaps we're, focusing on something very parochial, but I am conscious that the whole point of scrutiny is to look at something and consider it. And if we have an amendment whereby we can improve what has been put before us, there were only 8 people on this working party. I was one of them. I don't know everything. So we must engage with those other folks. And if there is something to add, we are scrutinizing, we are improving and making better this document. So however many amendments it takes, it's important to follow through and scrutinize. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Henwood. Councillor Lee.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and very good points there. about what scrutiny is. So this is a really good strategy. It is nice and clear, and obviously it's very core to the council as well. It's going to clearly impact absolutely everything we do. So given that it is core, and given the financial situation that has also been alluded to, and the impact of COVID, and the fact that we've been using our reserves to survive, quite rightly, but nonetheless we've been doing it. I feel that we should be making less use of consultancies to do this sort of work in the future, because it seems to me it's core to us, it's business as usual, and therefore it's something that we should be able to do internally. Now, this is a clear document, but on page 13 and page 19, the document actually refers to itself as being clear, which I found vaguely amusing, but it seems to me that's a judgment for the reader, not for the authors. And I think, in fact, it should be specific. So on page 19, rather than saying providing a clear spatial and corporate focus, it should say something like providing an explicitly defined spatial and corporate focus. I think that makes a big difference to how the thing reads. Actually, on that note, I felt also the partnership section could be a bit shorter as well. But the thing I really wanted to raise was the whole business of electric vehicles, which are discussed on page 28, I think it is. Yes, objective 10. So as we know, electric vehicles do have downsides as well as upsides. You've got all the, for example, the issue of making the batteries and disposing of the things subsequently. And you've got the whole business of creating charging points and having enough network to bring the electricity along. If we all used electric vehicles, I'm not sure the grid could cope. And worse yet, they are of course expensive, and therefore they're only really affordable for the better off. Nonetheless, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't encourage them and enable them, but it does mean that we should bear that in mind. So bearing that in mind, I wonder if we could have, it's either a change or amendment, I'm not sure, but on objective 10, an additional bullet point, which I don't think really changes anything very much, but it would simply read, monitor and where appropriate, support other sustainable low carbon dioxide vehicle technologies, because there are other ways of achieving this functional requirement of low CO2, low environmental impact vehicles.
Thank you, Councillor. Lee, I tend to agree with you. I mean, I'm very much promoting, or like to promote hydrogen. I see that as one of the future fuels of the future.
Can you repeat that? Can you repeat it?
Sorry, Councillor Hemwood?
I thought that was a marvellous amendment. Could Councillor please repeat what he had said? Thank you very much.
Yeah, just do you want to repeat that?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
So it would be in objective 10, an additional bullet point, what we will do, monitor and where appropriate, support other sustainable low carbon dioxide vehicle technologies.
Judy, you got any comments on that? Would you be happy to accept that from an officer team?
No, none from the officers, thank you.
Sorry? I missed that.
No comments from the officers, thank you.
Okay, all right, okay, thank you. I'll be happy to accept that. Everybody else be happy to have that insertion. We put that to a vote. Yeah, we've got a second. Well, anybody wish to second, Councillor Lee?
Yes, I'll second Councillor Lee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will.
We'll put that to the vote, please. Thank you. Yeah, that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor Annie, do you wanted to speak? I hope it's not a retort back to Councillor Coote.
Well, I'm afraid it is, yes, Chair. I feel I
please,
should have the right.
I don't want to get into, please, I don't want to get into this high-level political debate. I'm not going to allow you to raise it now. We've heard the various comments. So
I shall reply in the chamber.
I want to stick to the report. That's what we're here for tonight. I understand that the issues behind the scene, but please, let's shut that down. Thank you. Okay, thank you. No more comments on that. Moving on. We are now going to go to the action plan on page 34. Judy, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think we've tried to make the action plan as clear as possible, because we recognise that this is probably the area that most people will be most interested in. How we actually deliver against the objectives and how we measure success. So we've tried to set it out in a really easy way to follow, thereby hopefully making it easy to hold us to account in terms of how we deliver against the strategy. I think the timescales obviously are as best we can guess, but we've all recognised the changing nature of the environment we're working in, but also this particular work stream. And we will keep that under review as part of the review of relevance, as indeed we will keep all of the measures of success under review. We've tried to also help, because we recognise how complex this is, and we aren't always the direct deliverer. We are often just the influencer or the encourager. And so we've tried to make it clear who is leading and who we're working with in terms of the work that we're doing, because we won't be able to deliver all of this ourselves. Hopefully that's pretty self-explanatory. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you, Chairman.
See no. Oh, yeah. Councillor Alison Bennett, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I refer the committee to page 35, objective 3, which is about reducing pay inequality. I have a question in the first instance, and then potentially, depending on the answer, a way to improve it. So my question is, it talks about increasing hourly female earnings from 95% to 98% of male hourly pay amongst workers in mid-Sussex. So am I right in understanding that that is pay throughout the district, not just of officers within the council?
Yes,
yes,
that's right.
I can see some nodding. Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
that's right.
Okay, in which case, so I suppose follow-up question is, how do we think we can influence employers across the district to increase female pay? What's within our control?
I think that's a perfect example of where there isn't control as such, and it's an influencing and encouraging modelling. But yes, you're quite right.
Yeah, okay. So, thank you, Judy. Yeah, my assumption was then that it's not something we directly have control over, and therefore that target that we're aiming for is more something aspirational than something we know we're going to achieve in 3 years. In which case, can I suggest that rather than having an objective that sets female pay being 2% lower than male pay, we have equality of pay for female and male employees in the district? Because it seems to send the wrong message to say that this council's objective is for our women's pay to be lower than men's.
Judy, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that was the objective that we were seeking.
No, I know that's not what we want. We're setting out to improve it, but actually we want to have equal pay, don't we? We don't want to have women's pay being 2% less than men's pay. We want equal pay. That seems reasonable.
Okay, I mean, I think from an officer's perspective, it would be entirely up to the committee to consider that matter.
So could I propose that as a formal amendment then, please?
Have we got a seconder for that?
Second that, Chair, Eves.
Okay, we'll put that to the vote then, please. Would you just like to say exactly what your amendment is against, please?
Okay, so it'll be increase hourly female earnings from 95% to 100% of male hourly pay amongst workers in mid-Sussex by the end of the strategy period.
No, I don't think that's realistic.
But Judy's already said that it's not realistic, that it was not actually in the council's control to increase it to 98%. Does this council really want to be setting an objective that, when you flip it upside down, is saying we want women's pay to be less than men's pay? We don't, do we? That's not the kind of council we want to be. We want to promote equality.
Okay, Colin Trump, you wish to speak, please? Yeah, we can debate the item now, of course.
Chairman, are you inviting me to speak?
Yes, please. We're debating the item. Yeah, of course.
I mean, I wasn't going to debate that answer. I'd be interested to hear other members' views on that. Any action plan has got to be smart, of course. So all things need to be achievable and realistic. We have a time-bound issue here as well, which is 3 years. Is that realistic to say we're going to get to 100%? We might want to be. There could be hundreds of reasons why it's not going to happen. I don't know, but I don't want something which is not going to be smart as an objective. So I'd be interested to hear other people's views on that. Personally, I question whether it is. I understand what Councillor Bennett is talking about, but things need to be smart. And equally, in terms of smart, and I was looking at objective 11. Here we have mean download speeds of 400 megabits per second to 475. Gosh, I'd be jolly happy actually if I got 65.
Councillor Trump, can we just debate this amendment put down by Councillor Allison?
Okay, that's fine. So I have misgivings about it because I'm not sure that it's smart in terms of how objectives should be framed. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I wonder if there's a simpler formula than that, along the lines of promote equality of pay for all groups in Mid Sussex, because it seems to me, you can slice and dice this in lots of different ways, and the aim is equality, isn't it? Same work, same pay type of approach, and it doesn't matter how you slice it. That's what you want to do.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Anne Eves.
Yes, I could certainly agree with that from Councillor Lee as well. And I do think we might be falling foul of the Equality Act if we say we want, we aspire to women's pay being less than men's.
Okay, Councillor de Bell.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I was going to raise the same point, actually. I think Councillor Trumbull made a very good point that we need to look at these things carefully. But once again, we need to be very careful with all these amendments coming in, that we're not going to kill the golden goose right at the very start. There's a lot of good things happening here. Let's let it evolve and move forward. But I totally agree with what Councillor Lee was saying, that we're talking about equality of pay going forward and not just looking at a specific group. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Okay, Councillor Henwood. Janice Henwood, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I should think Councillor Bennett will probably, I would think, would be in agreement with Councillor Lee's alteration, whereby we promote equality of pay for all workers. I do insist that this is part of our job in scrutinizing and making sure what we produce at the end, that we all feel it is appropriate. So I don't know, Councillor Bennett, you speak for yourself, please. Sorry about that.
Councillor Coote, did you want to speak? You've got a tick box up, or you?
Yes, I did. Sorry, I meant to speak. Yeah, the situation is that there is no doubt that men and women should receive the same amount of pay for the same job. The district council have no way of enforcing this. We can be persuaders, we can advertise, we can say what we like, and we can, within our own walls, we can do it. But there is no doubt, and there is no reason why women should get any less than men for the same job. And I underline the same job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coote. Councillor Alison Bennett, do you want to, in light of what people have said, do you want to amend your amendment?
Well, if I may, yeah, thank you, Chairman, if I may. Thank you, Councillor Coote. I totally agree with you. Yes, Councillor Lee, I agree with the principle of what you said, that everybody ought to have equal pay for the same job, regardless of what sort of special category group they fall into. Looking at that page 35 that this target comes from, it's about male versus female pay, isn't it? Because that comes from the UN Sustainable Goal number 5, which is about gender equality. So I don't feel it's for me to say that the UN have got it wrong, thinking that gender equality is something that needs special attention. Maybe others in the group do, but I think I think gender equality is in that set of goals from the United Nations for a proper reason. And I agree, Councillor Trumbull, about objectives having to be smart, which is why I initially asked Judy about what influence we have over the target as proposed in this draft strategy. We agree that it's more of something aspirational that we can go and talk to employers in the district about, rather than something that is smart in the classics of management consultancy sense of it. So my point is that if we're going to have a target that is sort of aspirational, if you like, let's have the right aspiration, not one that pitches women's pay as less than men's pay. But thank you.
So are you going to put down an amendment, Councillor Bennett, Alison?
Well, I don't really. I mean, I'm trying to keep the amendment simple by changing one number from 98 to 100% linked to UN gender equality statements, rather than having to sort of pull it back to look at all groups. But if somebody has got that view and can suggest how that amendment should be worded and where it should go in this document, that would be super. Thank you.
Let's hear Councillor Lee's wording.
Yes, okay. So my wording was promote equality of pay for all groups in Mid Sussex. And Chairman, may I add a comment, please?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So with regard to the UN, we aren't the UN. Okay, we took that from them because it might be a useful thing. But we're setting the objectives for Mid Sussex, and I feel very strongly that it should be all groups, however we slice it. And no doubt the UN will be watching these proceedings with eagle eyes, and presumably will be modifying their documents accordingly.
I'm sure they will.
Councillor Cromie, Rachel Cromie, please.
Hi, sorry, not wanting to confuse the debate and matters even further, but if we were to say all groups, then we would essentially be saying that all ages should be paid the same, and that might well be sending mixed messages to organisations that we're also encouraging to take interns and apprenticeships. So I think because the document talks about a gender pay divide, I think it's probably best to stick to the gender pay divide rather than saying all groups, which would potentially send out mixed messages.
Understood. Yeah, good point. Councillor de Bell.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, it sounds simple, doesn't it? And Councillor Mrs. Bennett obviously thinks it is very simple, and it probably is, but unfortunately it isn't, because in this post-Christian world, there is no such thing as a gender anymore. That's the big problem. And therefore, as Councillor Cromie's just said, we need to be extremely careful that we're not treading on somebody's toes somewhere. It all sounds very simple, doesn't it? Let's do this, let's do that. But really, when you come down to it, it kind of doesn't really work. And I think Councillor Lee has come the closest to it. For people doing the same job at the same level, they should get the same pay. It's as simple as that. And that's where I think we should go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Coote, is it a new point? You're on mute.
I think Councillor Lee is correct, because that would include disabled people. There is absolutely no reason why a disabled person sitting at a desk with a computer can't do the same as somebody else sitting, some able-bodied person sitting at a desk, just because they are disabled. If they can carry out the work at the same quality and the same, there is no reason why we shouldn't include what Councillor Lee said. I think he's got it absolutely right.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I don't think we're far off in terms of where we're going with this, wanting equality for everybody. So I think the best way is all those in favour of Councillor Bennett's motion, Councillor Bennett will do, and then we'll go with that, and then we'll move on to Andrew Lee if he can get a seconder in a minute. So we'll deal with yours, Councillor Bennett, first. So all those in favour of your motion of 100%, change the wording to 100%. Doesn't it increase hourly female? So that is carried. Okay, that your motion is carried, Councillor Anderson. Thank you very much. It was 7 for, 3 against and 5 abstentions. Thank you very much. Okay, carry on the debate now. Back to the action list. Have we got any more comments? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. I refer to page 37 under Objective 6, benefits of sustainability practices and encourage action to support carbon net zero. If one looks under to coordinate and promote advice to help local businesses to improve the sustainability of the organisations via delivery of a programme of low carbon SME support funded through the Economic Recovery Fund. Now, what will that support pay for? Will it just pay for the advice, or will it help them to sort of achieve low carbon? I mean, this is something perhaps the officers can answer.
Judy, please, you have to help.
Yes, I'm going to ask Sally because her team are heavily involved in this initiative.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Thank you very much. It's actually quite a substantial amount of money, £250,000, and it's a package of interventions. The details of all the interventions are still being worked up. It's a new programme, but it will include advice and support. It will include networking. It will include signposting to where grant funding can come from. And in fact, one of our businesses, a Delphi Group, are key in terms of promoting this. So it's a big package of measures. It's going to be a whole programme in its own right. We're at the beginning of this and it should be very exciting. It also responds to a lot of requests that we had from businesses when we were out working with businesses in terms of what they wanted to see in this strategy. And that was advice and support and signposting. So it's actually in direct response to requests that we had from small businesses. So it should be exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no more indications on the action list. Thank you very much. We shall move on to the district profile, the key indicators on page 51 and the quality impact assessment on page 91. I'll take them en bloc. Judy, do you want to lead in on them, please?
I think they're pretty much what they are, actually. The profile is the evidence base. And just going back to the debate we've just had, what officers have sought to do is to pull together all the key data that we've used to then support the reasons, the rationale, if you like, for why we're suggesting the actions that we're suggesting. So, for example, we were aware that there was an inequality gap between men and women's pay in mid-Sussex. And that information is derived from the evidence base, which is set out in Appendix 2. So I think it's pretty factual. I've already acknowledged that we'll need to do some updates already to this because the data is ever changing, and as it changes, we will update it. So this is very much a live document. It will be available on the internet. We've used these successfully to support other strategies, and we will constantly keep that updated so the data is always fresh. The equality impact assessment, of course, is pretty much what it is. It's a requirement which we've complied with. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I see no indications. Oh, Councillor Trumbull, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I guess we're going up to page 71 and beyond, are we?
Yes.
Under education and qualifications. Just wondering if that's right. The fourth bullet point down, or is it the third bullet point down, talks about the closure of Central Sussex College, and we're now having no specialist state sixth form college. How does Hayward's Heath fit into that? Thank you, Chairman.
Judy?
Sorry, could you say which page that's actually on again?
Page 71, Julie.
All right, thank you. No, I think that's needs updating. I think that's referring to Hayward College, so we need to update that. Because as you know, it's now open, so we'll update that information. Apologies for that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Chairman. Just in noting when data is updated, is there some way of indicating that which data fields have been updated, just so that we can, sort of see that more easily? Thank you.
Thank you. Judy.
I'm not sure, actually. I'd have to double check that. I don't know if the technology would enable us to do that. But I'm sure that when we're reporting the review of relevance, if there are any changes to the data sets, that we would draw your attention to that. But that's something we can take a look at.
Thank you. Okay, I see no further indications. Therefore, we'll go to the recommendations, which are that the Scrutiny Committee considers and comments on the draft Sustainable Economic Strategy and Action Plan for 2022 to 2025, attached as Appendix 1 and 2, recommends to the Council that the draft Sustainable Economic Strategy and Action Plan 2022-25 be approved. Please vote now. Okay, thank you. That is 14 in favour and 1 abstention. Thank you very much, and thanks to all the officers, the tremendous amount of hard work they've been on the workshops and on producing the report. Thank you very much. Good debate, thank you. Right, moving along. Item number performance monitoring, item number 8. Neil, would you like to introduce this, please?
Yes, thanks, Chairman. So this is our third quarter performance report. It covers the period 1st of October to the end of December. You see that performance has generally been good, with 76% of our indicators shown at green. So the report's in the normal format with an Appendix A, which lists all the performance indicators that the Scrutiny Committee monitors, with an indication of how we're doing against performance targets, as shown by the traffic light system. So one of the points we make in the covering report is that some of our services are still being affected by COVID and the recovery programme. So we've listed some of the services affected in that way in the covering report. So they include environmental health. Also, our housing services are still having to take more people on in temporary accommodation, and revenues and benefits still have quite a heavy workload in terms of paying grants to businesses affected by COVID-related government grants, and also benefits schemes. And they'll soon be implementing the council tax rebate that's relevant to the helping people with their increased energy bills. Another couple of things I wanted to mention was some of the services are still being affected by the state of the property market. Our land searches team are getting a lot more searches to process, and we're getting more planning applications in. So hopefully in the appendix, where we haven't hit performance targets, we've given an explanation of the reasons for that and what we're doing to improve performance. So I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Neil. As per normal, we'll take it heading by heading. So anybody got any questions on building control? No, I see no indications. Community services, policy and performance. Environmental health. Land charges. Legal and member services. Customer services and communications. Human resources.
Sorry, Chairman, I had a hand up.
Councillor Hicks.
So on customer services and relating to the breakdown of phone response times, which I understand can't be given because of the new telephone system. I don't know what the timescale is for that, but thinking about the number of calls that come in through the contact centre as opposed to the authority as a whole, and the number of contact numbers that residents will be contacting the council. I don't know what sort of percentage come through the contact centre, but quite often, if it's a planning issue or parking or housing benefit, people will be phoning the other parts of the council. So I'm not sure it provides a very rounded picture of performance if we just look at customer services. And I don't know whether we monitor issues like abandoned calls, which would be a sign that calls aren't getting through or people are waiting too long. Because the sort of average wait for some of those specialist services is a lot longer than the sort of 30 seconds given in the target here.
Thank you, Councillor Hicks. Neil, would you like to comment on that, please?
I think that Simon Hughes might be best.
Simon,
placed to respond.
thank you.
To them.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we do have data on all calls coming into the council. We do have, we can see which calls fail before they get through to any particular department. What we're trying to do with this particular performance measure is to look at the effectiveness of the contact centre, which is where we get the bulk of the calls, and its ability to respond to the calls it gets. So I think, as you see in the percentage of inquiries resolved at point of contact, the reason we're monitoring that is that gives us a very good measure as to the calls the contact centre can respond to on its own, and those issues that get passed on to a service specialist. And then what that means we can do is improve our information on the website, pick up what are common queries so we can actually act on them and be proactive so people don't need to call. And sometimes that's about the information we provide. But we do have a host of data beneath this about how effective the system is, call routing, calls to different departments, and the time it takes to respond.
Thank you, Simon. Councillor Trumbull.
Thank you, Chairman. We see a number of amber and red markers on the report. And yes, indeed, it's listed where some of those are due to the hangover from the pandemic. Staff turnover isn't a concern for members unless it's impacting on service. Now, staff turnover, rather exceptionally, is running at around nigh on 11%. Is there any perceptible impact, do you think? I'd be interested to hear on staff, on performance and what is being done about that. Thank you.
Judy, that might be one for you.
No, I'm afraid I think that's Simon Hughes again. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. All of the measures here are about the performance of the council, and we have excellent managers managing each of those services. And what we regularly do, the HR team will talk to those managers about any particular issues to do with turnover, training, development, and so on. Also, those managers will be working with their colleagues in other councils. So, for example, the HR team have a regular meeting with all other councils in West Sussex in order to monitor where there are strains in terms of particular skills, particular workforce. So we can look at what's happening, we're not just to sort of market ourselves, we're a market across the whole area. We could look at what's happening on issues around pay, terms and conditions, recruitment, which posts have councils tried to recruit to that they're not filling, and what does that mean? And then we also work with South East employers to look at that. So this is one measure that tells us about what does that mean for performance. And then we have a whole series of actions that cover this, not just in terms of immediate let's try and deal with the problem we're just seeing, but also in how we develop people over time into new roles, the training that's provided in schools and colleges and universities, and what that means for the, if you like, the number of people that are interested in working with us. So there's a whole series of things that that come to bear on this.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Chairman. I was hopeful that someone could explain to me how the calculation works in the human resources staff sickness absent rate in terms of it being cumulative per FTE, and the way that the value rises throughout the year. Is that because it's sick days over the total workforce? And if so, I'm just wondering how helpful that is, sort of as a measure of performance, because clearly people will take time off through the year, as it were, and it might be more interesting to know exactly, when there are periods of high levels of sickness.
Simon?
Yeah, we do monitor that. This is just one measure, so we do monitor that. We also monitor long-term sickness as well. So that gives us a good measure of what's happening with sickness, not just over the year, but any particular period within the year. So we typically expect higher sickness absence over winter. That didn't actually happen under COVID for obvious reasons. But that's exactly what we're trying. We also look at what's the nature of sickness. So are there particular conditions that could cause problems? And the obvious ones we've been looking at has been COVID and the impact of COVID. And so there are various measures around how we mitigate the risks to our overall workforce for those sorts of things. We also have health and wellbeing programs as well. And the work of our teams works internally and externally. So looking at how we can create a healthier, happier workforce.
Thank you. Councillor Hardy-Brunson. You're on mute.
Hello, sir. Yeah, I just wanted to know, just picking up on that question, do we take a measure of dependency days? Obviously, we're not entitled to know what those dependency days are, but do we say in the last 2 years with the pandemic and how they previously reflected in the organisation prior to the pandemic, understanding what those are and how much they affect are impacted on the business?
It broke up a little bit. Is that about sickness dependency? Is that, Councillor Brunson?
No, it's about dependency days for other things, such as caring for other people, and such like. I mean, I think I appreciate it's a very difficult thing to measure because we're not legally entitled to understand what a dependency day is being taken for, but it's not sick dependency, it's caring dependency, and how our workforce has a need outside of the organisation that requires it to take time off from its job.
Is that something you look at, Simon?
Yes, we do monitor carers' leave, and also it's more than just the data. So our managers will be talking to their staff about what their needs are, if they have any dependents, what that might mean for their work program. I could give you some. I'm trying to think of. Well, I've got some specific examples. So very recently, I've talked to a member of my staff whose father has been unwell, and that's meant they've had to change their working times in order to support them. And that's something we would do as a matter of course as managers across the organisation. So it's more than just the data we're looking at. It's actually about the care and support of our staff.
Yeah, and coming back clearly about how we as an organisation support our staff is a reflection on how we can maintain and retain our staff in their positions. I mean, we don't. It's a measure of how well you're considered within an organisation as to how, when the worst happens in your life, how you are affected and how you're supported by your company.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Chairman, I can personally attest to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Moving along, ICT and digital. I see no indication. Ah, Councillor Gibson.
Sure, Mr. Hughes is expecting me to raise this because we did have an exchange on the subject. And it's really what we can do to add something here about to recognise the issues with downloading documents on the planning portal in particular, and indeed in other areas, because clearly there are problems with downloading some of the larger documents that come through where you have to try 2 or 3 times in order to get there. And I know that he has got a big program going that I'm looking forward to seeing what the output is. So it would be nice to have some benchmarking on just how terrible this system is in order that we can see that the investment was worthwhile. Thank you.
Is something that we'd be able to record number of failures of document downloads, Simon?
Yeah, we can. We most definitely can. I think what I'd say to Councillor Gibson is we have plenty of data on what the current system, planning portal, document management system, what problems it is causing us. It's not a lack of data, and that is a very good benchmark for what we want to procure to improve that situation. And with your query or the point you raised on larger document downloads, we're looking can do across the whole of the business in order to address that. Some of our line of business systems will enable us to address that, others won't. So we'll have to prioritise how we can change that.
Thank you. Revenues and benefits. I see no indications. Finance and property and asset maintenance, page 113. Economic development. Parking services. Landscapes. Leisure operations, sustainability. Councillor Annies.
You won't be surprised that I'm coming in on the electric vehicle charging points, Chairman, again. It just seems to me this was always a red mark, and the council have managed to avoid the red mark by just taking off the Cyprus Road and Chequer Mead chargers, which don't work. And that seems to me a bit of an obfuscation. So why is it data only? Because basically we've got no service at the moment. We should say so. Thank you.
Who would like to comment on that, please?
I can comment on that. We have openly acknowledged that there are issues with the chargers and have been for some time. And that is why we have started installing new ones. So by May, we will have a total of 54 chargers in place across 11 car parks, which will be the first phase of a process that will see 100 chargers installed in this current calendar year. And that will grow exponentially year on year as part of the new EV charging contract. So there's no attempt to, to explain that. They haven't been working. We know that. There's been reasons for that. And we have a solution for that moving forward, which is the new EV contract, which started installation 2 weeks ago.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Just a very quick one. Bearing in mind the world that we now live in and the situation that's coming out of Eastern Europe, where are we now in combating cyber attacks? I noticed that ex-colleagues of mine are currently coming under attack in Ukraine because of they're picking up their signals from mobile phones, etc. And Russia is turning more and more to this sort of thing. Where are we in fighting these off and stopping our whole system from being destroyed? Thank you very much.
Okay, we are here to discuss the measures, but I'll ask Simon to answer that, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just briefly, it's one of our corporate risks. We are well placed and we are working with the local government association and the government funded scheme to do a review. It's called it's a 360 review of our current arrangements, where we'll be doing some live testing. So very much seeing how people respond. And we will be talking to members more about that at the digital briefings that we're doing next week and the following week.
Thank you. Waste and outdoor.
Do all of you come? Because you'll hear all the answers.
Thank you, Councillor Demir. Councillor Henwood.
Sorry, it was actually on the next page, but I didn't want you to rush through without me having an opportunity to ask my question.
Please do.
Okay, so it's on the next page and it has to do with planning enforcement. It's on page 119. Do you ever record if the district council is successful when it enforces, irregularities in planning, etc.? Somebody builds a fence, 3 meters high and they have to take it down. Do we ever record how successful enforcement is?
Sally, would you like to take that question, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, we certainly monitor our enforcement cases, and we do have an enforcement page on our web pages. I don't know how many people use it or access it, but that tries to keep people up to date with the volumes of work that our enforcement team does, but also the outcomes of the enforcement work. Having acknowledged that enforcement is of interest to all members, we are going to be holding an all-member briefing on enforcement, so watch this space. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Chairman. Just highlighting on the percentage of household waste being recycled. I know it's not new, but we're 3% under target, and although it's been ascribed to COVID and more people home working, the trend hasn't been seen across the country. And I would just highlight the 51, over half of the authorities in the southeast, for example, have actually seen an increase in recycling rates, at least in up to 2020-21, so last year. And I would just highlight that we perhaps need to think about whether we need any more resource into promoting recycling, particularly thinking of the upcoming food waste pilot, in terms of clearly we're falling behind at least a little bit in this area.
Thank you for your comments there, Councillor Hicks. Any more on development management or housing? I see no more. Oh, Councillor Gibson, please.
Yeah, just picking up the final 2 items. Councillor Salisbury was keen to tell me at the December council that you can't have a loss of something that you never had with regard to 65 affordable housing units. So we need to find a different form of words for that. And I think looking at the 2 measures together, that the word cumulative should be added to the final one. We've had 257 in total, which very good, very good. Like to see the number of affordable houses in there. But that is the total, as I understand it, the cumulative total for the year. It's not the in-quarter figure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see no more indications. Recommendation. It's on page, excuse me. Right, okay, the committee is recommended to note the council's performance in the 3rd quarter of the year and identify any areas where further reporting or information is required, and advise the cabinet of any issues that the committee considers should be given particular consideration at the cabinet meeting 9th of May. So please use your yes or no buttons. Okay, that is, thank you, members. That is carried, 14 in favour, 1 abstention. I move to item 9, question pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 10.2, due notice which has been given. I have none. Therefore, I close the meeting at 19:34.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.